You've reached FITTV. Stick around, we'll be right back.
Soon we will be alright. When we're gonna make it work. Too many people living in a secret world while they play mothers and fathers. We play little boys and girls. When we're gonna make it work.
In a relationship with a narcissist, contemplating a relationship with a self-absorbed individual, well, take a deep breath and let a century go by before you choose. No, just kidding. Stay tuned and find out why narcissism should be a red flag for you. I have with me to discuss narcissism in relationships, Marla Matthews, relationship journey television host and psychotherapist and coach. Welcome.
Yes. Hi, welcome. How are you?
I'm fine. Do we have to go into the whole thing about me now?
Right, this is not about you. It's a show about narcissism. But we're
Okay,
not
in a
talking
relationship
about
with a
you.
narcissist, well, why should we be worried?
Oh, worried.
Concerned.
Okay. Let me talk to you very, it's a very serious disease, the Narcissistic Personality Disorder. If one gets involved with an individual with this diagnosis, it can actually lead to suicide on the behalf of the partner. Just imagine,
You mean they can get dragged in?
just imagine everything in your world being about the other person, that you are not allowed to have any needs at all. And if you have a need, not only is it negated, it's used against you. You're being abused for having needs. It sounds ridiculous if you have no idea of what I'm discussing, but complete lack of empathy. There's no humility on the narcissist's part. Everything, even the other person's problem and illness and disease, is about them. So if you were in a relationship with a narcissist and you were diagnosed with cancer, God forbid, that person not only would not be by your side, but they would abuse you for being sick. Could you imagine such a situation? And could you imagine the torment and the turmoil it causes in the partner of a narcissist, where it's almost like being in a relationship, think back into slavery, where you have absolutely no rights, like the slave.
I hear what you're saying. I know that, in our conversation before, that 75% of the cases in therapy are men, right?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
men. Mhm.
I have a feeling about this. I'm going to just say it real quick. Men tend to want to fix things. We tend to want to get control of things. We tend to want to say, I'll take care of things. That starts that way, and then it doesn't have to stay that way, but unfortunately men are stuck in that area quite a bit. That we fix things, we want to change things, we want to make you better.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and that has a conversion, which is what this topic is about. And that's why I think men are in therapy about. They don't know where that borderline is, and then they can easily go on top-ended. They can go forward with that whole mentality, thinking that, oh well, I've done this, I've done that. Now I can do this, and then I can do that, and then I can. They try to get teams like that. They try to control people. It's not unusual. That's why a lot of women, if you must have heard this in your coaching, that men are controlling. A
Yeah.
lot of men are controlling.
Well, I think that what we're talking about is we're looking for the root.
Yeah.
Why are 75% of the narcissists
Right.
men?
Yeah.
Where does that happen? I'm someone who's very eclectic. I don't think there's ever one reason or two reasons. I think there are a variable of reasons. This diagnosis happens to not be a chemically related diagnosis, however, though. It's more related to what's learned in the little boy's childhood, if you will. So what that would make me think about is how he is being raised by his parents, especially the mother. I hate to sound like Freud here, but I think it really has a direct correlation to how a young boy's relationship is with his mom.
A lot of things do the opposite way too for young girls and their father.
With the dad,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's always the opposite sex parent. But if we're going to stick to the 75% of narcissists are men, Yeah, it may have something to do with men want to fix things, and if they're unable
that's
to
just where it
fix them,
starts.
yeah, they get frustrated.
Yeah.
So instead of being able to say to the woman they're with, you know, I'm feeling helpless,
Right.
I'm frustrated, men don't communicate.
Right.
So in the lack of communicating is what you're saying is that now they're unable to fix it, so they become angry for the problem.
I took a course called Landmark, which demonstrated what you just talked about, and it does it in a different way. It calls it making me right, making me wrong.
Okay.
Men have a tendency to do that.
Absolutely.
I'm right.
Right. There's not too much
That's
gray.
right. I told you I was right.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Exactly. And they want it. They want to protect, and they want, you know, to take care of the person they're with in the relationship. So if they feel helpless, rather than working it out verbally again in communication, they will start to act out. That could be.
Well, I've seen it in my mediations quite often. That the men tend to be controlling. They tend to be working on the financial end of things. They tend to think that everything they've done is right.
Yeah. You know,
That's intimidating for.
I think that it always helps to take a look at where, but if you don't mind, where I'd like to
Go
go
ahead. Yeah, no,
with
please,
this
please.
is sort of like a self-help for individuals, for men and women, and if 75%, according to the statistics of this work, are men, so then women to be in the warning. Let's take a look at what the red flags and the warnings are.
Okay.
When you meet someone and you want to know what one of the most difficult things about meeting someone with a narcissist, you won't know it for a long time. You won't know it for weeks or months or sometimes even years. They tend to come on so the opposite, so loving and giving and selfless in the initial phases of the honeymoon phase, I say, of the relationship, where by the time the woman or the person is involved with them, they're already in love with them, and they keep hanging on to, like, where did he go? What happened to that guy that was pursuing me for all those months, that wonderful, kind person who was always there for me? And this is a red flag, actually. And what I would say to the viewers is that when you meet someone and you don't know them, and they want to be there for you in every aspect of your life before they know you, the first week, month, 2 weeks, 2 months.
It's a red
That's
flag.
a red flag that that person actually, when you're really supposed to be getting closer in the relationship, will actually now not allow you to have any needs or any feelings.
That's scary for the opposite sex in a relationship, because ordinarily you'd want somebody to be kind and reflective of your needs and things like that.
It's lovely, yeah, and I would think, well, the healthy individual, let me put it that way, the more you get to know someone, the more caring and loving you should become, because
Right.
then you really truly are loving them.
Yes.
The first couple
It
of weeks.
becomes deeper than a show.
Yeah,
Deeper than a
exactly,
show.
a show. And so this person is like sort of like off balance, like what happened to this person? So now I'm 6 months into it, and now I don't get any of my needs met. So you could see what's starting to happen. It becomes insidious. It becomes I don't want to sound extreme, but you think you're in a relationship with one person and you have, it's like a Jekyll and Hyde.
The one thing I want to caution the audience about regarding the narcissist versus the psychopathological
Right.
narcissist is that the compassion level may seem the same, but it's not necessarily. The psychopath goes one step beyond. They have no compassion. The psychopath will do the same beginnings you had talked about, loving beginnings,
Right.
and then become psychopathological about it and break no
conscience.
Yeah, have
This
no
person
conscience
has
whatsoever.
has
This
a
has some
conscience,
conscience,
has
right?
a conscience,
and that's
yeah.
why it's harder to pick up, I guess.
It
Probably.
is harder because then there are times when this person, you know, does display the kindness and the compassion. It's very hard to read. Another component of this that becomes very, very difficult is this person is unwilling to admit that they are weak and vulnerable. And we're all weak and vulnerable. We're human
One time or
beings.
other, that's for
yeah,
sure.
we are. And so if this person is unwilling to say that, if they feel that they're in a situation where they are not able to handle it, they will even become more aggressive to their partner when the partner then is reaching out and trying to help them. And it's also interesting, the people that become attracted to these narcissistic individuals are codependents. I hate to use all these labels.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
You know, I don't like to label people.
I think
but-
everybody can get that.
yeah, because do you see how
Yeah,
the pattern
oh, yeah,
is there?
sure.
The codependent wants to be affirmed, they want to be loved, they want to be approved of. So here they're meeting this person who does nothing but that in the beginning. And there you
They
have
think
it.
they get what they want.
There you have it, exactly. So you're actually what this turns into is a sadistic and a masochistic sort of combination. The narcissist becomes sadistic, the codependent receives the masochism because they're used to that. They're used to being in relationships where all they do is give and don't get anything. So they will end up staying together, but what happens in that situation is that codependent becomes severely depressed and even suicidal. And I mean, again, I have to give you this example that I have in my practice that I'm working with an individual. She came home and her husband told her that he had a sexually transmitted disease. Now you can imagine the terror that goes off in someone's mind when they're told that they may be exposed to an STD. And so she started researching it, going to doctors, wanting information. He got angry at her for looking into the issue. Could you imagine? That instead of him having the compassion, I'm so sorry, I've cheated on you.
Unless he's a doctor and he knows all about the...
Yeah, this to me
can't
is
see
the
it.
poster child for narcissism. So now his problem that he brought into the marriage, his wife now is just wanting to try to take care of herself. She's not even allowed to take care of herself because it affects his ego that she's questioning and getting information about the STD. It sounds so irrational, doesn't it? And when you
Yeah,
think about it,
yeah.
you're saying, huh? You know, you're just sitting there thinking about it. But once you are in that relationship and once you are caught up with someone and you already got your wheels going and your heart going, it becomes so, like, the only word I could think of is totally insane. It becomes an insane scenario.
What is this about domestic violence
Yeah.
you were referring to?
Yeah, when I was doing the research preparing for the show today, I found that they felt that at the root of domestic violence was the narcissistic personality disorder. Now, if you take a look at that, it makes a lot of sense, though. If this person is only concerned about their own needs, well then, you know, hitting his wife or wouldn't seem so bad to him because in his mind he would justify it that somehow it's deserved. So it makes sense.
Well, I can see the connection you're talking about. I don't know about the whole entire depth of the domestic violence front because it is a see, the domestic violence sends a red flag up to me, generally speaking, because of yelling at someone is now domestic violence to a sort.
Right.
So the law and its implication is in the back of my head. I probably shouldn't use this as an example in this show, but
I think of it as physical violence when you say domestic
right.
violence.
But they lower the bar. You can become a domestic violent person by the statute and by the statistical bureau, even though you may not ever be that kind
I
of
see.
person.
Okay.
And that's why. It
So
was
verbal abuse is considered domestic violence
it's
now.
a form of domestic
And
violence.
who
It's an
defines
abuse.
verbal abuse?
And it's all different now, and it keeps changing, and it keeps getting harder and harder to
Right.
step out of that. So now more people are falling into that. In the same way that the child support situation got worse with the deadbeat dad, there's not that many deadbeats out there, but because there are a couple, and because the system can manufacture them, okay?
I see.
Yeah, it just goes further and further.
I see.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this compliant codependent, belief in unconditional love,
Well-
tolerant being feel sorry for the other person, yet in reality codependents are terrified about laying boundaries. Does that sound right? And taking
Yeah.
control of their own lives?
You know, years ago there was a psychologist, I'm not sure how popular he is now, Harville Hendricks. Do you know of him?
Yes. Yeah.
He talked about the imago theory in relationships, how we are attracted to the parent that gave us a hard time growing up. So you could be a woman, and if the mother gave you a hard time, you will find a partner like your mother, and vice versa with the male, and whatever parent you had a difficult time with. In regards to codependency, what happens is if you take that a couple of steps further, that individual now is trying to constantly make that relationship work that didn't work in a childhood. So they are now being drawn and attracted. They're familiar with the person, the parent that abused them, emotionally, verbally, was not there for them, unavailable, however you want to define it. So now you have a codependent person who meets a narcissist, and he is fulfilling all her needs now, and she's like, wow, I finally got this right. Now I am not going for the parent that wasn't available for me. So they're thinking, wow, I've worked this all out, all my millions of years of therapy, I've finally chosen someone who's there for me. And then the rug comes out from under, and all of a sudden this person now turns into that abusive parent or the unavailable parent, and there you have the unconditional love that the codependent is so used to giving. See, codependence, at the root of a codependent personality is that person is so afraid of being abandoned and rejected.
Yes, yeah.
That they
Rejection,
will,
yeah.
the rejection, the abandonment. It would be better for them to be beaten and abused. I mean, not really. I'm talking in that mind of the
Yeah.
person, than to be left. Anything but being left. So they keep holding on to who this wonderful narcissist was the first few months, and now that person's abusing them. Well, it would be better if that person literally, physically hit them than left them, because it's just, it triggers up so many emotions. You know, one of the things that is common in codependency is that when that codependent gets into a relationship, it's like putting Miracle Grow on their defects. And it's kind of a comical thing, but think about it. All the triggers and the wounds that we have, and if you have codependency, that's all going to be heightened when you get into a relationship with someone. So unless you've worked that out, that person is not going to be able to heal you.
I only see the path of time being able to resolve that.
Time, therapy, and a spiritual, you know, Codependence has a 12-step program, just like AA and Overeaters Anonymous, all the addictions. Actually, the root of alcohol addiction is codependency. So they follow the same 12-step program that AA would, and what is the first step? Is that you're powerless.
You know, there's a sense that everybody has these issues, that everyone has some kind of issue. I don't mean these issues, but some kind of issues. So when you have these issues, whatever they may be, I always...
Except us, we don't...
I always believed in relativism, though. Relativism? You know, I really believe that there's a certain amount of level of acceptance that one can have over their own illness, whatever it might be, disease, and that the acceptance and rejection of the knowledge of having that is where the balance of life can occur.
Right,
because
exactly.
they don't...
Well, we all have, like I say, a garden variety of neurosis. All of us do.
Right.
You know, we're human. You don't get to be a stage in your life and escape that.
And we shouldn't affect, and some people are affected by that to their root because they may be of some other sort. That's why mixes and matches are sometimes visibly okay up front and visibly not okay up front.
You mean in relationships?
Yeah, in
mixes and
relationships,
matches.
yeah.
You know, as a therapist who works with couples, lots of times I tell people, you know, it's not that he's so bad or she's so bad. It's the combination that doesn't work, because different people,
exactly.
like in
That's what I'm
friendships,
referring
I know
to,
that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Different people bring out different things in us, and what could one person find to be annoying and exacerbating in another person, like a very sensitive person? Another mate would say, "Wow, this is fabulous that this person's so sensitive."
The key for a person in this kind of situation would be to recognize when you've changed.
The key,
if you can.
The key, okay, let's talk about that. That's important. Warning sign: when someone wants to love you so quickly, so much, before they even know your last name. Okay? I mean, I'm being a little silly, but the truth is, nobody can love you in the first week or two, or month or two. So that would be a red flag right there. And if this person is, like, again, the codependents don't have boundaries. So they're eating this up. They're being loved and validated and everything, but it's not real. It's not real. The narcissist is just validating their need to have the attention and the affection. You know, years ago I read a book by Ayn Rand. Do you remember her, The Fountainhead?
Yep.
She said that love was the most selfish of all emotions, okay? Romantic love. And for example, we're not going to go on the street and pick up a homeless person and love them. We're going to choose a mate that makes us feel good about ourselves, that we're attracted to, that we feel good about.
That makes sense, though.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Okay, now what you said a little earlier about things not being on level ground, being extreme, to the narcissist, that always is and never changes. It's the epitome.
Ever shall be world without an end.
Everything is about them. Everything is about them. In the beginning, when you're attracted and all the lust and, you know, the chemistry, that is true. But I think as we become to grow in love with someone, that becomes less and less, and you start to care more about their needs, and you start to love them when they're good, bad, and ugly, kind of thing, you know. So, but the narcissist will have a hard time with that. Like, you're not allowed to get a disease. You're not allowed to wake up in the morning and not look like you're on a soap opera, because everything affects them. Do you see what I mean? Like, everything in their partner is their mirror. You know why? Because they have no self-esteem. They are so insecure and they are so fragile emotionally that if their partner now becomes fragile, they lose it. I don't know if this makes sense to you.
Well, first of
but-
all, I hear what you're saying as a possibility, but in the back of my head, I'm saying I see the narcissist every now and then could very well be insecure, and I don't see it.
Yeah, they are.
But I envision that some are so power-headed that they don't give a damn.
Well, they use that to cover up. It's all an exterior. You know, the tougher
And some of
someone...
them do a very good job, apparently, because I've seen it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and they often choose careers...
And I don't see the insecurity, so I must not be picking that up.
Yeah, because they're so good at covering it, and they often choose careers where they are in power, positions of power, lawyers, judges, police officers.
Talk show hosts.
Talk show hosts. Yeah, you name it. But I mean, so they're so skilled at covering that up, but really, you know yourself, Chris, that when you meet someone that has to always tell you how credible and how great they are, they're really underneath that. They're very fragile. People
Sure.
don't have to boast about themselves if they really feel good about themselves.
Sure, well, if they have self-confidence and they're not taking
Yeah.
advantage of somebody else. I always felt that people who did that are really taking advantage of someone else
Yeah.
when they're boasting beyond the norm or whatever normal is, boasting.
Well, they're trying to get themselves to believe it.
Yeah.
Not just you, but themselves.
They
because
want to hear
inside
themselves
they're
say
so,
it because they're insecure.
Yeah,
There's another
because
thing
it
I
doesn't
didn't think
resonate
about.
as real for them. That's why.
What about the issue of, and I want to know how you feel about the anger issue, because minus domestic violence, anything that happens before, in terms of a narcissist, do they get angry? Do narcissists express their rejection of the other person's viewpoints? Do they stop the other person from being themselves?
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's another thing that someone might be able to pick up in the beginning, beneath all the glamour and the glitz and you know the smoke and mirror, as I say. If you find that that person is unable to say something nice about you,
Right.
that has nothing to do with them. You know, if you're going, and also is able to do activities with you that have nothing to do with them. You know, if they would take you out to dinner all the time, for example, but they also enjoy going out to dinner, mention something that they have no interest in and see if they'll be part of that with you. If they won't, that's a warning, because the
Right.
relationship's all about compromise.
That's a good example to give somebody who might be in that position.
Yeah,
Mention something
yeah.
that they're interested in, that they're inviting the narcissist or the other person as
Exactly.
a test into their lives.
And
Right?
you also might, during your course of conversations in the initial phases, ask them the last time they were happy. And a narcissist is never happy because, like the drug addict, they can never get enough. No one can ever fill them enough, can make them feel high enough, do enough for them, be there enough. As soon as their partner is human and isn't perfect, because that's no one's ever going to do that, they will become depressed. So
There's a
they
s-
will live their life depressed.
There's a superficiality with, especially men about women, but it also works the other way too, about the appearances of individuals. Does a narcissist fall into that line as well, in having a superficial approach to sexuality or appearances and things like that?
Yeah, generally, if you get to that stage, and that's another thing I would always tell people to wait before they go down that road, because especially for women, it ties a woman in more emotionally. Once she becomes sexual with a man, and then she starts to see these signs, she will oftentimes tend to stay in it because now she's connected physically with them. And that's a very strong bond for a woman. And what I have heard from my clients is that the narcissistic lover is very cold, objectifying of their partner, doesn't usually say they love them during lovemaking. It becomes more of a physical, mechanical act that, again, is all about them. And to add further, they're unable to become even emotionally available during the sexual act as well, because they're not emotionally available in any aspect of a relationship.
So there's a tie-in, you're saying,
Yeah.
between the emotional level and narcissism. There's a tie.
And the sexual and the spiritual and all of it. I mean, it's all tied in. But again, the problem with the person getting involved is they won't see this. See, when you meet someone who's a sociopath or some of the other diagnoses, you know, manic, bipolar, you kind of see that pretty quickly. this person is, it's almost like being with an actor. They are playing a role and the pursuit and the chase, and once they get you, that's it.
In many different areas in life, not in defense of narcissists, but in defense
You
of...
can defend them a
No,
little bit.
no, of the defense of the human character.
Mm-hmm.
There's a role that everyone plays out to try to identify with, and there's a certain amount of role-playing people do even with themselves on occasion. They find themselves in a place where they didn't know. They know how to fit the role. There's role activism.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a book I read called Relations in Public. It's a kind of a relationship absurd book, but it does talk about all little nuances of all the things that we do, that when we're trying to identify ourselves in public, we're making up some kind of role. Even to the example I just noticed of my hand being out and talking to you. Some people do that, but it's role-oriented. I'm a talk show host.
Right.
One of the things I will do is I'll point and demonstrate with my hand, as I'm doing now,
Right.
a little more than I ordinarily
Okay.
would. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so we find ourselves role-orienting, and that doesn't. That would be that a narcissist would do that to a larger extent then.
Probably
Makes
because,
sense.
yeah, they've gotten so used to just being that way. It's the norm for them. It is their role.
To be acting.
To be acting because it serves them. You know, I hate to point like to
Well, they
politicians.
know they're going to get positive reinforcement in that in this role play. Is that what you're referring
Positive
to?
reinforcement. Well, it works.
Acceptable.
It works for them.
Yeah.
You know, when you are charming and kind to a person, you're going to win their heart.
Most likely. Right.
You know, you can't come off and be horrible on the first date. That's not going to work. So you have to do your best. You're on your best behavior. It's an illusion until you got them, until you got the person's heart. You know, so again, what I say is to people, when you meet someone, go very slow in all your relationships, because the first 3 to 6 months are really an illusion. You know, and if something is going to come out, it's going to come out after 3 or 6 months, depending on how much time you're spending.
Seems to me like you and I have had this conversation before. What about proving love? There's a tendency of them wanting to continually prove their love. Narcissist,
To
right?
prove,
that they love.
oh yeah,
They'll try to get. They'll keep doing.
well yes, because they know
their
who they
devotion.
really
They're
are.
devoted and loyal.
Yeah, they can be loyal.
Yeah.
See, narcissists, it doesn't have anything to do with them being disloyal or betraying or cheaters or whatever you want. That doesn't come into play with the narcissists. In fact, most times I've heard they are pretty loyal. But the personality, they know who they are, and they know what's going to hit you down the road. So yes, they're constantly proving that they're so great, because they know underneath it all that it's all going to be about them. You know, what would probably work for a narcissist is to find someone, I mean, I'm being, facetious here, but who really has no self-esteem, no identity, and really just wants to serve that person. That might work for a narcissist, someone who has no ambition, always wants to stay home, cook and clean, and just be there. I mean, I'm being kind of...
It's a dominant type role. We have 1 minute left. Maybe you can just
all right,
recover
yeah.
anything you want to say at this
what
point
I
about
want-
narcissism and relationships.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is, from a spiritual component, is that therapy is very helpful when you think you're getting in a relationship and you want to work this out, but also to go spiritually to God and to pray. And if you feel things in your spirit, in your gut, I say my God gut, you feel things, don't deny what you're feeling. It's probably something's wrong.
Yeah, my advice to add on to what she said is that delaying the sexual gratification in most cases in almost every world that we'll ever live in will be a wiser thing to do. It's obviously it's the most difficult thing to do, but it would definitely be a wiser thing to do, to spend more time to have not this red flag show up. Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family. It once was the cornerstone of our great American culture. At FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV every single week. Of course, we always invite any opposing views. My name is DiMaggio. Thank you for watching FIT TV, and we'll see you again next week.